FDIC insurance is $20 million tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the March 15th Rotary Club Lexington meeting. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be started by the President-elect Megan. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One Verse of America by immediate past President Cleve Coates.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Invocation by past President Murray.
In this day and time of so much confusion in the world, it's really, really nice, and let us not forget the simple things in life, which maybe bring us back to the ground, which is to be able to share moments like this with friends in our own community and have service above all else. Amen. Amen.
Secretary Attendance, Secretary Frank.
Happy to do the attendance today. We have in attendance 16 members. We have 2 guests and 1 Rotarian. In terms of introductions, Past President Bob, will you introduce the chief?
I'd like to introduce the fire chief from the town of Lexington. I remember him from the day he came on the job till when he was my lieutenant, to my captain, to the assistant chief, to the chief of the department. To the first shift we worked together, which I was told I can't talk about. They have folks, so they did. So, Chief Derek Sensabaugh.
Welcome.
Past President Dominic, will you introduce
Yes,
Rob?
sure. I'm pleased to introduce Ravi. He's our interim Rotarian. I wish he could stay here from Denmark, but anyway, he's here again. And he's made more meetings than the regular members here.
Welcome, Robbie. And Past President Murray, will you introduce our speaker?
I think you have. You have perfect attendance.
I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Rebecca Dalmas, and she's lucky enough to be from the town of Wellfleet on the table.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
That's the brief introduction. The really big introduction. Yes, no? Yeah, no. So in conclusion, we have
Welcome, everybody. And now, if all the Rotarians could rise for the welcome song, which will be led by Secretary Frank.
Okay, don't let it lag, please.
We welcome you to Lexington to meet with us today. Our door is always open to our friends in Rotary. We're glad to have you with us and we hope you'll come again to Rotary Lexington. We all say welcome visiting Rotarians. Welcome all you non-Rotarians. Welcome to our club in Lexington. We hope you'll come again.
You wouldn't sign up for the Firehouse Week?
Absolutely. This is portion of our meeting. Past President Spencer, can you please give us an update on comedy night?
I'll do comedy night, or should we do Happy Dollars first?
Let's do Happy Doll.
I'll do Happy Dollars since you called on me. So when I was my first round of presidency, I had the great Dan Lucas, and he did the invocation every week. It was awesome. I didn't have to think about it. I propose that we make Craig Smith every week do the welcome song, because that was our best renditions in about 17 years. So,
Second motion. All in favor? Aye. Okay, you guys have it. Past President Dominic.
I have Happy Dollars. Little Olivia turned a year old yesterday. So 20 Happy Dollars.
Oh my God.
Happy birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, one.
Past President Bob.
I got some aggravating dollars. I spent 47 minutes on hold today with Lady Clinic, for the pleasure of them charging me for a $60 copay, and it's gonna be probably $9 to park, to spend 7 minutes with a doctor.
Just add on to the bill. Anybody else? And the Rotary, Nana.
So I have $20 last meeting, I was a hybrid, and this is officially the first time that I'm a full member of the Rotary Club.
Anybody else? Okay, immediate past president, please.
President Veronica, I'll just piggyback on what past President Bob had said about our fire chief. Somebody very progressive in the town. We're happy to have him, and we're happy to have him here as our guest, just joining us today.
All right, so, should we talk about comedy night?
Sure. I'll do all three of my things while I'm up here, just to make it easier. So, first one is the easiest, NCAA brackets. You can fill out your brackets today. It's open, they're $20 a bracket. If you want to give cash, that's great. If you want Dan to bill you, that's even better. Just let Dan know that you're going to do 1 bracket, 2 brackets, or let me know, and I'll forward it on to Dan and he can bill you. If you haven't gotten the invitation to the brackets, just let me know and I can send you the invitation right after this meeting. End Hunger Now, we are going to be doing it at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Lexington. It's going to be on April 29th, so it's a Saturday. It'll be probably like 8 to 2 will be the times. We'll have volunteers come over. It's going to be with the Concord Rotary Club and their youth service group, the Bedford Rotary Club, their youth service group, and then we're going to invite the kids here from Minuteman Tech to join us as well. So it should be a fun group. We're going to do 30,000 meals. I don't know, we'll figure out how long that takes, but we'll do that one. Comedy night, we're going to have a board meeting right after this one, but we're going to start getting tickets out. We're going to do it all electronic as far as tickets. There's not going to be paper tickets this year. They're going to be $69 if you're under 65 and $65 if you're over 65. We are going to give a senior discount for those who want them. Yeah, I know. Somebody complained. Got to make everybody happy. And it's going to be comedy and music, right? So it's going to be Tony V, he's going to be the MC, and then a Billy Joel cover band, and I'm not going to say the name or else I'll... Yeah, that. They're going to be playing afterwards, so it should be a lot of fun at Cary Hall in June. So we'll get some more information out to everybody after the board meeting this afternoon that we're doing for that, the comedy board meeting. So if you're on the comedy night committee, please stay afterwards. Thanks, Michelle, for coming today.
Very busy.
I don't know why. Nothing's happening in the banking industry.
Literally.
Watch it, Dan.
Past President Jim with an update on scholarships.
Sure. We're going to be having a luncheon, scholarship luncheon in May 22nd. Looking forward to that because it's usually a little bit warmer and hopefully no snow. We are starting to get applications in from the high schools. We have the Minuteman looking for 2. I still need to get in touch with LCA. I haven't been able to get in touch with them, and I will. But and if I know Murray said he's interested. Dan, I know you help out. And if anybody else is interested in interviewing the kids, let me know.
Thank you. And Secretary Frank, if you want to give an update on Sanford seniors.
We're going to be picking up all the buckets of ice melt during the week from Patriots Day till the following weekend, so the whole 9 days in which to pick them up. And thanks to the storm that we're going to get tonight, and maybe the one the following weekend, with any luck, all the buckets will be in. So I'll send out sign up in April, and then based on the number of people who respond, I'll then divide up the pickups based on that.
Thank you. And President-elect Megan, if you want to give an update, please, on Patriots Day.
Okay, so Patriots Day, we're doing something new this year. We're going to be selling coffee, hot chocolate, and donuts sort of right on the green there by the library for the reenactment. So it'll be an early morning, but it won't be too long of a time, so probably 4:30 to 6:30. And we'd love any volunteers that we can find. I mean, if you've never been, it's an experience.
Probably been.
Okay.
All right, so now
Yes.
okay. So the weekly raffle this week are offered by Eagle Bank, Bickley Investment, Rotary Club of Lexington, and Arlex Oil.
And just before that, just based on Spence's thing, if anyone's looking for a small mutual savings bank that has FDIC and DIF, 1768 Mass Ave in
I think
Lexington
this is a
is
fun
your
one.
place.
Big time! Big time!
For every word, Spencer brought it up. Going with it, you know.
That's an extra. That's a new entry from, you will. You will.
Okay, blue tickets.
Yeah.
Let me get my glasses on. The first number ends in 9116.
The winner is
That's close.
Blue.
Blue.
Dan's got it.
Dan has it. We already found
The
it.
last four numbers, 9116.
Very
We
good.
need
Yes,
proof,
that's
Dan.
it.
We'll make sure.
Picking the next one, so you can't pick from this cash, you can only pick from.
I love it when Michelle's not checking ticket.
Gonna take
Okay.
five shopping now?
The next is 9114.
Oh,
911.
9114. They found it over there.
Oh, ticket.
And the next ticket is 9131.
Will you take a 9113? Come on.
No, 9131, no one has it. Is it mine?
How's that possible?
9131?
No, no.
Yes.
Meant to be.
Dan.
At the calendar, the government, or the
Okay. 9115.
There you go.
9128. I kept it in there. 9128. Danny, I kept 45 and gave it. Yeah.
Chief.
I already have both of these things.
yeah, we imagine set. Now you can wear them as like gloves.
The last lucky winner is 9124.
Oh, right.
And this is something you can cherish. Yeah. This is a great, oh, you do? It's you? Okay.
Well, you can have matching sets. You can wear them outside like mittens.
And that's a
Oh.
Veronica.
They do it for Patriots morning, handing coffee out with them.
Good memory.
Past President Murray, if you would like to introduce our guest.
Thank you, President Veronica.
Oh, time's up.
Well, it was a good time.
I sat down, he's like,
No, so Rebecca, I'm going to introduce you for the sake of this for a second. We have Rebecca Dalmas here today. And Rebecca is going to be speaking on literacy and childhood development. And she's got a very interesting approach. I'm going to just give you a little bio on her. She informed me that she was conceived in California but born in St. Louis. So she grew up there. And she attended Northwestern University for 2 years and then followed that up by finding a teacher of her dreams at SUNY Purchase, State University of New York at Purchase, where she could take the violin, and that became her major, and she did other things after that as far as graduate work, which she will disclose. She was married to a very, very well-known architect in Switzerland. That's where they lived. And then when he passed away, suddenly, according to Rebecca, she decided that she really wanted to come to a something to really concentrate on and point her life toward. and she's going to speak about that today. You'll find it very, very interesting. Rebecca?
Thank you all for inviting me. I love sharing and I'm going to talk about. Thank you, Murray, and thank you, Dan, and Veronica, and the others that I hadn't formally met. So my name is Rebecca Dalmas, and yes, I was conceived in California, born in St. Louis, and in second grade I moved to the East Coast. And I also lived in Switzerland for 10 years, and as Murray shared, my husband died suddenly when I had 2 children that were 7 and 9. In Europe, I had been a chamber music violinist, so I didn't do big symphonic orchestras. I did really intimate chamber orchestra music. And so with that, I had a lot of training, which is kind of how I got to where I am today. And I want to talk about literacy. In my home, my father had been a journalist, so there was a lot of language and a lot of reading. So despite studying music, I was an avid reader. I loved to read. One of the things that I noticed, I performed more, but I had a couple of young students. And what I noticed about the students is that when I structured them properly within the mechanics of playing the violin, it's like they would fly, like they didn't need me anymore. So I could see when something was structured properly, the self-generative capacity of us humans as our ability, our spatial ability, will just move forward really fluidly. So then we jumped to when my husband died. When he died, because my children were 7 and 9, I thought, well, I can't really go on tour anymore. I really can't go to rehearsals at night anymore. I have to be with my children, so what else do I love? So what I loved was I loved to read, and I loved that experience that I saw in the child, in that it's like they were structured and they just started to go off on their own. That was really amazing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to teach elementary school kids. So I moved back to the States, and I went back to school at 38, and I finished a degree in elementary ed, and then I moved on to a Master's of Education in Reading, K through 12. With my background of studying music, what I had noticed in the years that I had to practice all the time, first of all, I hated to do the ordinary. I hated to go back and take something apart. But what I found through the years is that when I did that, I learned faster. And when I did that, I was more certain when I got up on stage. So that was one part of it. The other part of it I learned was if I practiced, and a master told me this, if I focused correctly when I practiced, I didn't have to practice that much. And that was like, well, what does that mean? So it took me a while to realize that, but yes, I didn't need to practice that much if I knew how to focus. And what I had noticed, if I practiced with some emotional thing going on in the back of my head, like a sub-vocalization of, my friend didn't say something right, if I practiced that with that back there, I wasn't focused. And if I got up on stage, I had to juggle paying attention to the acoustics in the room, to the music, to the people I was performing with that noise in the back of my head. So that always distracted my focus. So that was a really interesting thing, and that was part of the journey to understand how to focus. So then I looked at, how do you learn to drive? When you learn to drive, you do it really, really slowly, and then it all speeds up, and it's like your focus zip files through everything that you need to drive the car. Right? Does everybody see that? So what happens? Your spatial ability can then come out, and you can pick up your phone, you can answer your phone while you're driving, you can carry on a conversation with someone while you're driving. So what we focus on, the structures that we build, become unconscious and they automate. When I had to perform, and I would play like one of Mozart's chamber music pieces for the 20th time, it would start to automate, and then I would start to make mistakes. So I also learned that I always had to keep my focus on the structures that I was in. Because even if I was highly trained, it could go into automation. So the point is that things automate, what we focus on automates in our unconscious. And that within that, we have to be structured in such a way that we always can keep the fluidity going. So with all that in mind, I'm in a 4th grade classroom and I'm teaching these children long division. And I realize in a moment, oh my God, they don't have that structure. Because they're all had these different things in their unconscious that haven't been cleared up and they've automated. So they have resistances. And some of them, are afraid to speak up. Some of them freeze when you call on them. And I thought, there's no way that I can answer to the degree of focus ability with all the unconscious things going on to each individual student out of 20 students. It's an impossibility. So I thought to myself, well, how can I structure them? How can I rebuild in a way where they get that generation going? Just like I saw in that child with the violin. How do I rebuild? And what do I rebuild with? Words. We are the words we know. And that's when I go into research. It's actually known that you can have a strong aptitude in something. And in your 20s, with all your youthful exuberance, you'll do really well. But when you hit 30, you start having problems because you don't have the words. You don't have the structural thing. So you actually start losing that natural deductive ability that you have that made you a success in your 20s. Yet people that are born with a strong vocabulary, when they hit 30, they actually expand. So words are that important. How you build that unconscious structure within you that is your map is all dependent on the words you know. If you have the definitions behind the words are polarized, you lose your focus. And as you get older, it gets harder and harder to focus. So in a classroom with the children, what I did with, of course it was math, it was long division, I used this in music to accelerate learning. Accelerated learning actually means when you engage all the senses. Memorization is slow and tedious learning. Full engagement of all your senses is more rapid learning. So I thought, okay, I'm dealing with numbers and math. These kids don't know this math. I used all kinds of narrowing of the focus mechanisms because I couldn't answer to their emotional firewalls. So I had to distract and narrow their focus. So I created all these games with the class working with numbers. And then the second half of the class, we just worked on over and over again in different situations. I let different kids go to the board. I did different configurations of kids working together, just practicing the steps of the long division. When they took the test, and I was a new teacher, their scores were 60% higher than all the established teachers. And those teachers didn't like that. The schools don't like it. When you do something, you take the children beyond what they're capable of doing. So this is when I really looked into language. And I also really started to look at the emotional components. And one example that happened about the same time when I was realizing all this with greater specificity was we lost electricity in my house for 3 days. So, of course, you don't have water in your toilet. But I have water on my property, so I got this big bucket and put it next to the toilet. So my sons at that time were like 12 and 14, and they come up to me in the morning and they're like, I'm like, how do I go to the bathroom? And I'm like, well, there's a bucket there. Just go pour the water into the well, the toilet bowl. And they're just looking at me like deers in a headlight, and I realize, here I'm creating emotional polarity. I'm assuming that they know how to use a toilet when they've never done it before. So I go into the bathroom and I show them, and I'm pouring the water into the toilet, and in that moment I'm like, I'm an idiot. What is the tank? The tank is the bucket. And then I realized, that's how much we can be in our heads as knowledge and information, and we don't even know how things work practically. And then you have a child that's like 12 or 14, and your parents there, just pour the water in the bucket. And I didn't even know. And that is like a suppression to the natural presence and pattern recognition ability that we as humanity have. So if you have hundreds of those kinds of things happen to you, where an adult looks at you and says something flippant and short-tempered because they think you just know it, what's going to accumulate? Like driving a car, what's going to accumulate in your unconscious? Is that going to be an unconscious movement that generates you and gets you to move? Or are you going to walk into a room and have resistances to things like, I don't like English, or I don't like this, and you don't even know why you have that experience because you don't even know how that was built. And we're doing it all the time. What's happened in America, there's a lot of history behind this, and I can send a lot of information. What's happened to literacy in the United States? It has fallen exponentially. Thomas Paine's Common Sense used to be read in the 3rd grade. Then it was moved to the 7th grade. Now you might read it in college. When President Kennedy was president, the average general literacy rate of the American population was 7th grade. And that was 7th grade at his time, because 7th grade today may be lower than that 7th grade. With Bush, it had gone down to 5th grade. With President Trump, and this is not a criticism of him, we're at the 3rd grade. Which is why he uses those quick little phrases and repeats them again and again. So what do we have accumulating in our society today? Attention disorders? What are ADD, ADHD, and autism? What is the law of compounding effects over generations? And what is the cure for all of this? It's words. You have the words have a direct relationship to the thing. So, it took me till I was in my 40s to realize pouring water into a toilet bowl was idiotic. All I had to do was put it into the tank. But at the same time, I wouldn't have shown that to my children. So all of this was happening at the same time when I came back to America and I was getting these degrees and looking out at this classroom. And one thing that I noticed about the children in the classroom was it's like real human nature wants to participate. Those children, even the ones that picked themselves up out of bed and went to school because their parents needed some behavioral management and they were drinking too much. This one boy, he would come to school by himself and he would throw tantrums. One time he threw chairs around because every time he went to read, he had so many bad experiences with learning language that the frustration just was becoming the information in his unconscious, and he would pick up chairs and throw them around. But that boy got himself up out of bed on his own every day to get to school. And what's fascinating in the research is that when you can't express yourself, when you don't have the units of measure to define how you're feeling and the relationships of the things in the world around you, even if you have a high aptitude to do so, if you can't communicate it, if you can't structure it and define it and give it clarity through the structural use of words, you end up getting more and more frustrated. And it can happen at an elementary school level, a teenage level, a 20-year-old level, a 30, 40, or 50-year-old level. You hit a wall and you can't move forward. How much time have I been talking?
Good about another 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yes, I do. So I'm about five.
Well,
I've
yeah,
got about.
I'd say about another 15 minutes at the most.
I've got about 5 minutes. So all in all, one thing I had done in music with narrowing of the focus mechanism, that accelerated my learning. It also, when you engage all the senses and you narrow your focus, it's like you get outside of your own experiences. And you engage all your senses, you can learn super fast. They call it accelerated learning, but it's actually natural learning. So what I looked for was a tool. I thought, how can I get the words in without pictures and we build? So the children can practice the words, or an adult, purify the words by bypassing your experiences, using all your senses to get it directly into your unconscious memory, so that you could begin to do really well. You're rebuilding that unconscious mind. So I got involved in something. I found the man, actually the man found me, and I thought, oh my God, this is what I want, this is what I want. And I went out and I worked with these children. One parent, I said, I need her for 21 days, because in 21 days you can change a habit. And I need to work with her for at least 20 minutes a day. This was a girl that had ADHD in the school, and they couldn't get her to read. And it's, after you do this long enough, and I think the music helped me with this, because if I allowed any muscle to tense in my body while performing, it would compound, and I would get tenser and tenser and tenser, and I couldn't play. So I was very aware of the body in some ways through this discipline. So with this girl, I could see all of this. So what we did was we reintegrated all the basic word lists, the sight word lists, in 21 days. The 20th day she came running home and she said, Mom, the school wants to know what you're doing because you got me to read and they didn't. So this tool is called Technotutor, and what it is, it's about reintegrating all your words, making sure the definitions behind them are clear. 19-year-olds, we have teenagers, circling straight A's. We have adults in their professions that start jumping up the pay scale. 6-year-olds, and this is just using this tool a little bit every day, are reading at a high school level. So if we go back to Thomas Paine's Common Sense, when Thomas Paine's Common Sense was read in the 3rd grade, we had a more equitable society. So it is our responsibility to actually know how words support us to express ourselves, because the consequence of not having a good vocabulary is those behaviors of frustration. It's actually known how many prison beds you will need by the reading levels of kids in the 4th grade. So if we want to increasing our literacy, will equalize our society and create a better world for all of us. And think of all those geniuses that are in each of us that will come out and support building a better world. So thank you all. Any questions? Did this ignite a lot of thinking?
It's kind of amazing when I think about what you said. We've got now ADD and ADHD as a big problem, and my recollection as a kid is that we did not hear much about this, but they didn't know as much then as they do now. I'm talking about the professionals, the teachers, psychologists, educators, etc. Is this something that is being explained to therapists now who are treating kids with ADD and ADHD?
This is something that empowers the child. For example, one client, the father purchased a tool because the daughter said, the thing that's great about this is that I get to do it myself. Because in some ways, very good, we're all good-hearted, we all want to support, but sometimes too much micromanagement is actually a detriment. The child needs the ability to self-generate. Does that make sense? So this is a tool. I mean, if you increase your vocabulary and you go and you speak to people that are supporting you, you're going to be able to hear what they're saying and then directly apply it. These studies on vocabulary were done in the 1920s. General Electric had a problem, you know, you can imagine the technology's been changing from the start. And so the technology was changing so much that the workers, they noticed a lot of workers couldn't keep up with it. And so they did all these studies, and what Johnson and Connor found out is that those that had a better vocabulary were more changeable. They could learn new things rapidly. So, any other questions?
Yeah, how does it apply to older people? We've got a lot of people now with mental, senility, Alzheimer's, all this.
Well, there is, I always think of the term the sins of the fathers as though in our very old texts, they're telling us that this is what happens. So that unconscious, if you have those, that, like with my sons, when I walked in and said, just pour the water into the toilet bowl. And they're looking at me and they're feeling like, why is mom treating, putting all this emotional stuff on me when I've never done this? And they pick up that emotional thing and they see that again and again, that becomes in their unconscious. So let's call that polarized energy. So just as in the Johnson O'Connor studies, even if you have a high aptitude, if you don't have the vocabulary to structure yourself, you're going to lose that high aptitude. So how we build our unconscious and subconscious and conscious minds is extremely important, every little inch of it. And words are the way to structure that so that the children have great focus. So we call it the focus builder and the word purifier, and yes, it will help anyone with English. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So Rebecca, in appreciation of your presentation to the Rotary Club of Lexington, a donation will be made to the Rotary International and Polio Now campaign to vaccinate 40 children against the polio virus as part of Rotary's global effort to eradicate polio in the world. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Thank you for coming. This was a great presentation.
Look this way, please.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, and now we have the 50-50 raffle.
Frank, you're going to have to step up.
Okay.
You do it.
I think these are going to be the pink tickets. And the number is, last three numbers, 591.
Yahtzee.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Well, how much is it here? Is this all of it?
That's yeah, $3.
Story of my life, trust me.
Bob, you owe money.
$45, Bob.
Not bad.
All right.
Do I wish this to work again?
Yep.
I ring it in?
Oh, try it again.
Okay.
Try it again.
Okay, I guess go back once a week.
That's better.
That's not right. Crap.
Yeah, 1 second delay. I can be it. So when are you going back to bed?